Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
My name is Gregory Cortez, and I'm the son of Diane Sanchez, the grandson of Elaine and Bobby. First, I'd like to thank you all for coming today, especially on a Friday, a work day in the middle of the afternoon, taking time to celebrate Robert Rodarte. I'd like to share briefly my reflection on my short experience with Grandpa Bobby. Over the years, many unique things stood out to me about Grandpa. In my early years, I noticed he was very meticulous and regimented in his daily practices. In the early mornings, he would tend to his bonsai garden, dial in his lawn, pruning it, watering it in the early hours of the day. He made sure his Nissan was washed and shining clean, and he engaged with the neighborhood on Southside Drive as if he was an elect there. For some reason, be it his mystique of his routine or just my interpretation of him, he always reminded me of a Mr. Miyagi type man. He was wise, quick-witted, caring, and even at times a bit grumpy. Grumpy. As a young boy growing up, this helped me regard him and appreciate him. Fortunately, he was also a very creative person. He was one of the few elders that I had that could operate a Macintosh with ease and utilize it to create all sorts of wonderful media for us, his family, to enjoy when we got together. Be it a playlist of the relevant music at the time. Oftentimes it was bootlegged off the internet because that's how it was done in the early days. And he was very privy to that. He created slideshows of our recent gatherings of photos that he took and that he had, and placed it with said music, and created all sorts of other memorabilia for us to enjoy. Because of this, it usually meant that one of our quick trips, mine and my family's quick trips to Los Angeles from Northern California, I'd find myself with him in his office, comparing the new things that we learned about Apple, a new song, or fixing something that had broken. And we're just hanging around together. The best part was that he was always willing to share and give his time to us, his family. He loved movies, his pets, his wife Elaine, and all his family and friends. With his quick wit, his opinions were certain to be heard during family engagement, as he loved to contribute and share his personality, at times very loudly. A few years back recently, again, I was helping him migrate some of his files from his computer to a new one, and to get some of his things organized. He asked for some of my help. We used one of my hard drives as it was available. This worked out well for me because I was able to receive many of the photos that he took on his time from his perspective. So it was a win-win. I could help him and I could gain some memorabilia myself. So I was very happy about that. As time went on, a few minutes later, as I had taken my hard drive home and time had passed, I was importing those files. And I was taken aback by what I had found, witnessing for the first time for myself a side of him that I had not seen before or ever had the opportunity to really understand. And what I saw was a young man in the United States Army, many of his photos that we see here, documenting his experience with his cohort during a time of battle and conflict, revealing such a unique and often unknown side of himself and his life, especially to me, who as a young man only saw him as a grandfather, well past this time in his life. My regard for him was instantly elevated, and also my empathy for his personal experience and the effects thereof came full center. That being which he experienced, Vietnam, etc. He may or may not have had the choice to serve, as many didn't, oftentimes, and faced many unknown circumstances that I can only imagine at times was frightening, but also very empowering for a young man to go through to represent our country. Now that I'm older and a bit more understood about the post-traumatic stress that many of our veterans experience after serving our country, my heart is filled with compassion for a man whose trauma and lack of being understood by a society that at times all too quickly forgets the sacrifices that were made by these men and women. And he may have had to deal with many of these things on his own and by his own means, some healthy and some not. This makes me wish more that I had known these things sooner, to have allowed more room for him to be himself and share his life in ways other than just being a grandfather. Because to me, this serves as a valuable reminder that before we are a parent, a sibling, a boss, an employee, a friend, we are ourselves first, and it's important to allow room for others in our life to be just that, themselves, accepted for who they are individually, regarded for their sacrifices and their commitments, their rights and their wrongs. They're guaranteed to not be perfect. They're often unknown and unrecognized as biases or prejudices that are in most cases taught to us, not inherently within us. And also their unique joy that they bring to this life. For truly our time here is brief, but through God and each other, us here especially today, remembering Grandpa Bobby, we will live forever and always amongst each other, even in our passing. I like to advocate to everyone here to not only embrace the vulnerability and to share more of who you are beyond your scribe label, but also to allow space and room for others in our life to do just the same. For we do not always know all of the good and the hurt within someone's soul, and we might just be able to love them all the more for it once we know it. Lastly, in closing, I'd like to recognize Danny and Vicky and Grandpa Bob's sisters and family for their enduring commitment to checking in on him, Bobby and Elaine, over the years, as their very immediate proximity, we could say, to them often meant a lot of responsibility was placed on your guys' plate. And you were there daily, frequently, doing things that many of us were not able to do or to be a part of. And that too is a sacrifice that should be recognized and appreciated. So in closing, I just hope to recognize Grandpa Bobby for his life, who he was as a man, as a servant to our country, respectably and honorably,